Now, one of the most common problems encountered when conducting genealogical research occurs when you can't find a single document that clearly states the relationship between two people in your lineage. This type of problem might need to be resolved using indirect evidence. I'm Dr. Mikael, and I am Canadian by descent, and you might be too. I'm a professional researcher specialized in historical document analysis. I help people locate, interpret, and organize the genealogical records they need to demonstrate direct descent from a Canadian ancestor. Please note, I'm not a lawyer, nor an immigration consultant. Nothing I provide is meant to be construed as legal advice. I can't provide any advice on legal proceedings or applications relating to citizenship procedures. I'm simply not that exciting. I'm a boring professor. I'm a professional genealogist and historian who can help you with the research and compilation of the genealogical records you need with less hassle, more clarity, and peace of mind. Now, indirect evidence. What is that? In genealogy, not all evidence works the same way. There are three basic types. Direct evidence answers a question on its own. For example, if a document clearly names somebody, John Smith, as the father of a child, Jane Smith, that's direct evidence. Indirect evidence doesn't give you the full answer by itself. It needs to be combined with other records to build a solid conclusion. And then there's negative evidence, which is something you would expect to find, but you don't. That evidence, that absence, actually can tell you something very important. Now, on that point, it's worth mentioning that the absence of evidence does not mean that there's evidence of something actually being absent. So it's a little bit more nuanced, and that's why we'll have to leave negative evidence for another video. But the key point is this: a document isn't strong or weak on its own necessarily. It depends on what question you're trying to answer. A genealogical document or a historic record is simply a document or a record. It does a certain thing. Whether or not it answers the question that you're asking is the important thing to understand. And how it might, if it doesn't answer your question clearly, how it might still contribute to a clear and solid answer. Let's make this a bit more concrete, shall we? Imagine a record that names a young girl, Susan Riker, as the orphan daughter of a Deanna and William Riker, but lists another man, Jean-Luc Picard, as her guardian. So from that, assuming all other things align and there's no clear evidence to the contrary, you could reasonably conclude that the deceased Deanna and William were the mother and father of the child. That's direct evidence for that specific question. But what about the relationship between the child and the guardian? Was he her uncle? If so, which side? If it was on the father's side, why does he have a different surname? Was he her cousin? Was he the captain of the ship? That document alone doesn't answer that question. To explore that relationship, you'd need to bring in other records, maybe a marriage record connecting the different families together, or a will listing family relationships, or perhaps a captain's log or a ship list that might identify strong ties between, say, captain and first mate. Only when multiple pieces line up together, names, dates, locations, relationships, right, consistently attested to across documents, can you start forming a reliable conclusion. And that's how indirect evidence works. You build a case by combining pieces together cumulatively that point in the same general direction or triangulate together to close off an empty gap. So here are the key principles. A few key rules that people sometimes overlook. First, matching names is not enough, especially if your name is something like Maggie McCready or William McGuire. It's about like John Smith in North American English. You need a timeline, location, and context to make sense. And even then, you might have two people with the same name in the same town, possibly even descended from the same grandparents. Not uncommon for cousins, first in their own immediate families, to bear the exact same name. Check timeline, dates, location, and context, that is to say, other known relationships, to continue to make sense. Second, you need full records, actual records, not just summaries that somebody decided to write up when they were gathering family lore 50 to 75 years ago. Abstracts like that can help you know where to begin searching, but real conclusions require detailed documentary evidence and not just your great-great-granduncle's best recollections of the events. Third, conflicts of evidence, conflicting data have to be explained. If dates or details don't match, you can't just ignore that. And finally, relationships are never assumed. They have to be demonstrated with evidence. Because people historically have been just as socially fluid, shall we say, in their relationships as people today. So it's important always to find documented record evidence of established relationships. So when you're building a family line, remember, some answers might come from a single document. Many don't, but require multiple documents to triangulate and close an empty gap. The real work of genealogy is knowing how to combine evidence properly and recognizing when something looks right but isn't actually proven, and how we might prove it. That's the difference between a guess, even a solid hunch, and real demonstrable lineage. Thank you for watching. If this video could be helpful for you or someone you know, please share it with them and click the link below to see how I can help you. And let's be in touch.